All the executives failed to translate it, but the cleaning lady solved it in just a few minutes. And what the millionaire did next surprised everyone. Before we get into the story, let us know in the comments, what city are you watching from? And at the end, don't forget to rate this story from 0 to 10. Enjoy. Logan Lancaster, CEO of a major investment firm, was staring at a freshly received fax that could take the company to a whole new level. The document came straight from the French branch of a European conglomerate, and every line was full of technical terms and legal language in Old French, the kind of thing that needed a translator with a lot of experience and nerves of steel. The problem? The company's official translator had gotten sick, and they had only 30 minutes to reply. "I need that translation now," Logan shouted, clenching his fists. The meeting room was packed with anxious advisors and directors. Some were on their phones, trying to find options. Others just looked at the CEO, waiting for him to fix it, like he always did, brilliantly and on his own. Clara Martinez was quietly pushing her cleaning cart down the hallway on the 25th floor. It was her first week working for the company through a contractor. She almost walked right by, but then she heard the commotion. "It's $1 million contract. If we don't get a translator now and send it without checking, we're in trouble," someone said. Clara stopped. Without thinking too much, she stepped closer to the glass door that was slightly open. "Can I help?" she asked, unsure. Everyone turned around, as if a bird had just spoken English. Logan, tense and skeptical, looked at the young woman in a simple uniform, gloves on her hands, and a cleaning cloth over her shoulder. "This is a high-level contract in legal French. You—" He paused, almost laughing. "You can read this?" Clara shrugged, calm. "If I can take a look, I'll let you know." Silence. An older director sighed. Logan, on impulse, handed her the paper. "All right, translate the third clause." Clara read carefully. Her eyes moved over the words like they were familiar. "Party A reserves the right to automatically revoke the exclusivity clause if Party B does not meet the expected results in the first fiscal quarter." Logan raised an eyebrow. "That wasn't in the earlier version." "That clause could really hurt you if you sign now," Clara said naturally. "They slipped it in strategically, so it wouldn't look like a trap." The directors looked at each other. Logan grabbed the fax and read it again, this time with full attention. The room went quiet with tension. "Are you sure?" "Absolutely. Can anyone confirm this?" Logan asked, scanning the room. No one said a word. He took a deep breath. "Get me a new draft, without that clause." Clara handed back the paper, picked up the cloth from her shoulder, and began to walk away. "Thank you." Logan hesitated. "What's your name?" "Clara. Clara Martinez." And just like that, she calmly walked away, as if she hadn't just saved $1 billion deal. That night, Logan couldn't sleep. Instead of reviewing quarterly reports or diving into Asian market trends, he spent hours thinking about the woman in the hallway. Who was she? How did she know legal French? And how in the world did she spot a hidden clause better than anyone on my team? The next day, Clara was vacuuming the manager's break room when 2 security guards came over. "Miss Martinez, Mr. Lancaster wants to see you in his office." "Did I do something wrong?" she asked, wiping her hands on her apron. They just smiled and pointed toward the elevator. She went up to the 48th floor, heart racing. The elevator doors opened to a quiet hallway, completely different from the rest of the building. An assistant led her to a large glass office at the end. Logan was standing, looking out at the city. "Have a seat, Clara." She sat down, a bit nervous. "I reviewed the contract last night. You were right." "I'm glad, sir." "How did you know?" "I studied languages and translation. French, Spanish, English, and a bit of Mandarin." He stared at her for a moment. "So why are you here?" She smiled, a little sad. "Because none of my resumes ever make it past the first round, and bills don't wait for interviews." Logan leaned back on the desk. "I have an offer for you." "Trading my broom for a dictionary?" He laughed, for the first time. "Something like that. I want you to be my personal translator. Travel, international meetings, contracts." "You're joking." "Rarely." Clara looked around the room. "And if I say yes, you start tomorrow." She took a deep breath. "And if I say no, you're going back to cleaning, but this time with twice as many security guards watching you, because now everyone wants to know who the cleaning lady is that saved my company." Clara laughed. "So, can I think about it?" Yes, but you have until tomorrow. And just like that, they were about to seal a deal that would change not just their careers, but something much deeper, something neither of them could see coming. Clara spent the whole night staring at the ceiling of her small apartment. Logan's offer echoed in her mind like a drumbeat. Personal translator, international travel, a salary probably 10 times what she made pushing a cleaning cart. But something bothered her. Something about the way he looked at her, like she was a rare find, a curious object dug up in an archaeological dig. What if this is just some rich guy's whim, she thought, turning over in bed for the 10th time. By 6 in the morning, her mind was made up. The elevator to the 48th floor had never felt so slow. Clara held a plain folder with a few documents, translated certificates, diplomas, and a recommendation letter from a professor who still believed in her. Logan's assistant, a classy woman named Patricia, greeted her with a professional smile. "He's expecting you. Coffee?" "Yes, please." The glass doors opened and there was Logan, this time sitting at the table, typing furiously on his laptop. When he saw her, he closed it and stood up. "So, did you sleep well thinking about my crazy offer?" Clara sat down and placed the folder on the table. "I slept terribly, actually." "Good sign. Means you took it seriously." She smiled. "I accept, but on one condition." Logan raised an eyebrow, intrigued. "I'm listening." "I want to keep the cleaning job, too. At least for now." "Excuse me?" Clara took a deep breath. "Look, Mr. Lancaster, I don't know you, and you don't know me. For all I know, a week from now you could wake up and think, what a ridiculous idea hiring a cleaning lady was. So until I'm sure this isn't just some impulsive move on your part, I'd rather keep my safety net." Logan stared at her for a few seconds. Then he started laughing. "You really are smart." "I have to be." "All right, but I'm warning you, it's going to be rough. Translator by day, cleaner by night. I've done worse." He reached out his hand. "Then we have a deal, Clara Martinez." She shook his hand firmly. "Yes, we do, Logan Lancaster." The news spread through the company faster than gossip in a small town. Patricia, even though she tried to stay discreet, couldn't hide her excitement when she told 2 friends from HR. From there, the word flew through the hallways like leaves in the wind. By lunchtime, the executive cafeteria was buzzing with whispers. Clara was at a corner table, trying to figure out the French menu. The irony didn't go unnoticed when she felt every pair of eyes on her. "That's her," whispered one secretary. "The cleaning lady who became a translator?" another replied. "They say she saved a multi-million-dollar contract." "There's got to be something going on. Nobody climbs that fast. Maybe she's got dirt on the boss." Clara pretended not to hear, but every word hit a nerve. It wasn't anything new to her, of course. Her whole life she'd dealt with people questioning her ability, her place, her right to be in spaces they thought weren't for her. Then Richard Blackwood walked over to her table. Blackwood was the senior vice president, a man in his 60s with perfectly combed gray hair and a smile that never reached his eyes. He'd been with the company for 2 decades and had a reputation for being ruthless with his subordinates. His suits were always impeccable, his presence always intimidating. "So, you're the famous Clara?" he said, sitting down without asking. "Hello, Mr. Blackwood." "You can call me Richard. After all, we're colleagues now, aren't we?" His tone was polite, but Clara caught the bite behind the words. "I suppose we are." He leaned back in his chair, looking at her like some interesting specimen in a lab. "You know, I've been here 22 years. I've seen a lot of people rise and fall in this company, but I must admit, I've never seen anyone jump from the basement to the 48th floor overnight. Life's full of surprises. It sure is, especially when you have, let's say, certain qualities that catch the boss's eye." Clara stopped chewing. The insinuation couldn't have been clearer. "Sorry, I don't follow." Richard smiled the way people do when they think they're the smartest one in the room. "Oh, come on now. Don't play innocent. We all know how some people get ahead around here. And I'm sure Logan was very impressed with your talents." The restaurant was starting to quiet down. Other people had picked up on the tension at the table and were beginning to listen in. Clara calmly set her fork down on her plate. She looked at Richard with the same expression someone might use to observe a particularly annoying insect. "You know, Richard," she said, using his name for the first time, "you're right. I do have some special skills." "Oh, really?" Yes, I can read contracts in French without using Google Translate. A few people nearby started to chuckle. Is that so? Richard asked, his voice tightening with irritation. It is, and I can also spot trap clauses that save the company from losing millions. Oh, and I have a very rare talent. What's that? Clara leaned forward with a sweet smile. I know the difference between intelligence and jealousy. The silence that followed was deafening. Richard turned beet red. Listen here, young lady. No, you listen. Clara stood up, still smiling. I didn't ask to be here. I didn't beg for this job. And I sure didn't sleep with anyone to get it. I just did my work better than any of your overpriced translators. If that bothers you, maybe it's time you rethink what you've been doing for the past 22 years. She picked up her tray and walked toward the exit, but paused and turned back. Oh, and Richard? Next time you want to make a comment about me, make sure your own skills are up to date. Because as far as I know, I'm the one who translated that contract, not you. The restaurant filled with murmurs and quiet laughter. Richard sat alone at the table, his face now the color of a ripe tomato, while several people glanced over at him with amusement, and something more. 20 minutes later, Clara was riding the elevator up to the 48th floor when her phone rang. I heard you stirred up a little scene in the restaurant. Logan's voice came through, clearly amused. News travels fast around here, especially when Richard Blackwood turns red as a pepper in front of half the dining room. Patricia told me everything. Clara laughed. He started it. I know, and from what I heard, you ended it brilliantly. The elevator doors opened. It was nothing. Logan was standing at the office doorway, leaning casually against the frame, wearing a smile she hadn't seen before. A real one, without the usual corporate coolness. Clara? Yes? I think I made the right choice. She walked past him toward her desk. You don't really know me yet, boss. I might end up being more trouble than I'm worth. I seriously doubt that. Patricia appeared at the door with a stack of documents and the look of someone trying not to laugh. Mr. Lancaster, the meeting with the Japanese team's been moved to Thursday, and some urgent contracts just came in from the Madrid office that need translation. Logan turned to Clara. Ready for your first official challenge? Clara took the documents and skimmed the first few pages. Legal Spanish. Easy. Easy? It's like legal English, just with more drama and passion. Logan laughed out loud. You're fired. What? Fired from janitorial duties. You're officially a translator for Lancaster Enterprises. Clara felt a strange pull in her chest. A mix of relief, pride, and a tiny bit of fear about what was coming next. What have I let you down? Logan stepped closer, suddenly serious. Clara, yesterday you saved a $20 million deal. Today you put a vice president in his place using nothing but brains and grace. If that's not proof you belong here. He paused. Then I'm the one who doesn't deserve to have you on my team. Clara looked at the documents in her hands, then up at the man in front of her. There was something in his eyes she couldn't quite name. Respect, maybe. Admiration. Or something else she wasn't ready to label. All right, she said, but if you change your mind, I won't. How can you be so sure? Logan smiled. Because you just proved you're not afraid to stand up to anyone. Not even your boss. And for the first time since all of this began, Clara felt that maybe, just maybe, this wild opportunity could actually work out. After all, she'd spent her whole life proving she deserved a place in the world. 3 weeks later, Clara was standing at Boston's International Airport, staring at the first-class ticket in her hand like it was from another planet. Are you sure this isn't a mistake? She asked Logan, who was next to her holding a leather folder and looking like someone who flew internationally every week. Clara, you're my official translator. I'm not putting you in coach while I fly first class. But I've never. There's a first time for everything. The flight to Paris felt surreal. Clara spent 2 hours trying to figure out how the seat turned into a bed, and another 3 wondering how much each glass of champagne cost that the flight attendant kept offering. Logan worked on his laptop, glancing at her now and then with an amused look. Nervous about the meeting? He asked when she turned down the champagne for the 5th time. A little. It's different translating documents than translating live for French investors. You'll do great. How can you be so sure? Logan closed the laptop. Because you have something most translators don't. What's that? You understand what you're translating, not just the words, but the meaning behind them. Clara smiled. Thanks, I think. Le Bristol Hotel was in the heart of Paris, an elegant building that looked like it came straight out of a 1950s French movie. Clara looked at the facade and felt a mix of awe and nerves. First time in Paris? Logan asked while the driver unloaded their luggage. First time outside the US, actually. He looked at her, surprised. Really? Passports are expensive when you make minimum wage. Logan was quiet for a moment. Well, then let's make it count. At the front desk, things got interesting. The receptionist, a polished man with a strong Parisian accent, greeted Logan warmly. Monsieur Lancaster, what a pleasure to have you with us again. Pierre, always a pleasure. Pierre looked at Clara and his face lit up. And this must be Madame Lancaster. What an honor to finally meet you. Clara blushed. Actually, Nous avons préparé votre suite habituelle, Pierre continued in French, gesturing excitedly. And a special honeymoon surprise, champagne, rose petals, chocolates. Pierre? Logan tried to interrupt. And the romantic dinner on the rooftop. Magnifique. Clara looked at Logan, who was clearly trying not to laugh. He thinks we're married, she whispered. I noticed. Pierre kept talking, now explaining all the special services for honeymoon couples. Other guests started watching them, some smiling like they were witnessing a live romantic comedy. Pierre. Logan finally managed to say, This is Clara Martinez, my translator. She'll need a separate room. Pierre's face fell. Oh, I'm so sorry. No problem, Clara said in perfect French. It's an understandable mistake, but I do need a separate room. Pierre blinked several times. Your accent is perfect. Thank you. Did you study in Paris? Boston, actually. Impossible. You speak like a native Parisian. Logan watched with growing interest. Clara was chatting with Pierre like they were old friends, laughing about inside jokes about the city and making comments about the hotel's architecture. So, Pierre said, now completely charmed, 2 rooms on the same floor? Perfect, Logan replied. 2 hours later, Clara was in the lobby waiting for Logan for the meeting. She had changed out of her travel clothes and into a simple but elegant navy blue suit. She was nervous, flipping through the meeting papers for the 3rd time. Ready? Logan showed up, as polished as always. I hope so. The taxi took them to a modern building in the financial district. On the way, Logan explained the details of the negotiation. There are 3 investors. Marcel Dubois is the most conservative. He likes numbers and facts. Sophie Moreau is more visionary. She cares about social impact. And Jean-Luc Bertrand is, let's say, complicated. He likes to test people. Test how? You'll find out. The meeting started off formal, with polite introductions and coffee that smelled better than anything Clara had ever had. Logan began his presentation in English, and Clara translated in real time into French. At first, the investors looked at her with polite indifference. Just another American trying to speak French. But as the meeting went on, their expressions changed. Clara wasn't just translating Logan's words. She was adjusting expressions to fit the culture, using phrases that spoke directly to the French mindset, making small changes that made the proposal more appealing to that specific audience. Interesting, Jean-Luc suddenly said. You translated market disruption as révolution du marché. Why? Clara didn't hesitate. Because disruption in English has a positive sense of innovation, but in French it sounds aggressive. Révolution better conveys a transformative change without sounding like a threat. Jean-Luc smiled for the first time, and you translated cutting-edge technology as technology d'avant-garde. Cutting-edge would literally be à la pointe, but avant-garde has cultural roots in French. It sounds familiar and trustworthy. Sophie leaned forward. Did you study cultural marketing? No, I just pay attention. Marcel, who had been quiet until then, finally spoke. In 20 years of doing business with Americans, I've never seen a translator who understands our nuances like this. Logan watched in silence, but Clara could feel his eyes on her. It wasn't the look of a boss watching an employee anymore. It was something different. The meeting lasted 3 hours and ended with firm handshakes and promises of a formal proposal within a week. That night, Logan invited her to dinner at a small bistro near the hotel. You were amazing today, he said while they waited for the wine. I just did my job. No, Clara, you did much more than that. You didn't just hear what I was saying, you understood what they needed to hear. The waiter brought the wine, and Logan raised his glass. To the best investment I've ever made. I'm not an investment. You're right, you're a discovery. Clara laughed. Stop complimenting me. It'll go to my head. Maybe it should a little. They talked about everything during dinner. Logan shared stories about his early business trips when he was young and trying to prove himself. Clara talked about how she learned French watching old movies with her grandmother. Your grandmother likes French films? She thinks everything sounds more romantic in French. Even arguments about the electric bill. Logan laughed. She's right. As they walked back to the hotel, along the lit-up streets of Paris, Logan stopped suddenly. Clara? Yes? Thank you. For what? For reminding me why I started all this. She looked at him, puzzled. What do you mean? For years, business has just been numbers to me. Profit, loss, strategy, competition. Today, watching you connect with them, I remembered that behind every negotiation there are real people with real motivations. Clara was quiet for a moment. Logan? Yes? You're not the cold man everyone thinks you are. They looked at each other for a few seconds. There was something in the air, something not quite professional, something neither of them was ready to name. We should head back, Logan said finally. Yes, we should. But neither of them moved right away. In the hotel elevator, Clara realized something had changed between them. Logan was no longer just the CEO who had given her an opportunity. And she was no longer just the cleaning lady who knew languages. They were two people starting to really get to know each other. And that was both exciting and a little scary. 2 weeks after they got back from Paris, Logan walked into Clara's office with a gold invitation in his hand. Chamber of Commerce Gala Dinner. Saturday night. Clara looked at the invitation like it might bite her. And I'm going because? Half the guests are international investors. I need an interpreter. Logan, I don't have anything to wear to an event like that. I already took care of it. He placed a credit card on the desk. Patricia will go shopping with you tomorrow. I can't accept this. It's a company expense. You need to be properly dressed to represent Lancaster Enterprises. Clara picked up the card, hesitant. Are you sure? Absolutely. The grand ballroom at the Four Seasons Hotel was unrecognizable. Golden lights, huge white flowers, and people who looked like they'd stepped out of a magazine. Clara adjusted the navy blue dress Patricia had insisted she buy, elegant without being flashy, sophisticated without being pretentious. Nervous? Logan asked, offering his arm. A little. This isn't exactly my usual environment. It wasn't mine either, a few years ago. They walked in together, and Clara immediately felt the curious stares. Logan Lancaster rarely attended social events and never with anyone at his side. Mr. Lancaster, an older man approached. What a surprise to see you here. Senator Williams, may I introduce Clara Martinez, my translator. Pleasure to meet you. The senator shook Clara's hand. I hear you were crucial in the negotiations with the French. I just did my job. Modest. I like that. As the night went on, Clara found herself talking with German investors, Japanese diplomats, and Spanish business owners. Logan watched from a distance, clearly impressed with how easily she moved between languages and cultures. That's when she showed up. Victoria Ashford was exactly the type of woman Clara pictured when she thought ex-fiancée of a billionaire CEO. Tall, blonde, wearing a red dress that probably cost more than Clara's yearly rent. She moved through the room like she owned it. Clara noticed the change in Logan immediately. His shoulders tensed, and his expression hardened. Who is she? Clara asked quietly. Trouble, Logan muttered. Victoria walked over with a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. Logan, darling, what a surprise. Victoria. You look great. Business seems to be going well, from what I hear. Can't complain. Victoria glanced at Clara with barely disguised curiosity. And who's your companion? Clara Martinez, my translator. Translator, Victoria repeated, like the word left a bad taste in her mouth. How interesting. I thought you'd finally found someone special. Clara caught the dig but kept smiling. Actually, he did. A good translator is hard to find these days. Victoria gave a cool, crystalline laugh. I'm sure that's true, especially one who fits in so well in a corporate setting. The implication was obvious. Clara was just another employee trying to take advantage of the boss. You're right, Clara replied calmly. It takes real skill to adapt. For example, I can translate contracts in 5 different languages. Some people can only manage to change fiancés when the first one goes broke. Dead silence. Conversations around them stopped. Victoria went pale. Excuse me, did you say? Oh, just a general comment about adaptability, Clara said sweetly. Nothing specific. Logan covered a laugh with a cough. An Italian businessman nearby burst out laughing. I like this girl, she's got spirit. Laughter spread. Victoria realized she'd lost control of the situation. Well, it was interesting meeting you, Clara. The feeling's mutual. Victoria walked away with as much dignity as she could gather. Logan waited until she disappeared into the crowd before turning to Clara. That was rude of me? Brilliant. She started it. I know, and you finished it perfectly. A waiter passed with champagne. Clara took a glass. So, can I ask what happened between you two? Logan was quiet for a moment. When my company almost collapsed 3 years ago, she decided a potential billionaire wasn't as appealing as one already established. Ouch. Yeah, she married him 6 months later. Clara looked toward where Victoria had vanished. Fool. Why? Because anyone with half a brain can see you're the kind of man who always bounces back. Logan looked at her with an expression Clara couldn't quite read. How do you know? Because you hired me. Only someone who believes in hidden potential would take a risk like that. An hour later, they were in the car headed home. Clara had taken off her shoes and was rubbing her feet. I'll never complain about my work sneakers again, she murmured. Logan laughed. You get used to it. Part of corporate life. Is it worth it? What is? All the show. The fancy clothes, the fake smiles, the empty conversations. Logan thought for a moment. Depends on what you walk away with in the end. And what did you walk away with today? Watching you put Victoria in her place was the highlight of my month. Clara laughed. You're terrible. Maybe. They sat in comfortable silence for a few minutes. The city lights danced past the windows in a blur of color. Clara? Yes? Thank you. For today. For everything. No need to thank me. It's my job. I'm not talking about the job. She looked at him. Then what are you talking about? You standing up for me when Victoria tried to humiliate you. You didn't have to. Yes, I did. Why? Clara hesitated. Because no one deserves to be treated like that. And because I can't stand people who think money gives them the right to walk over others. Logan watched her in the dim light of the car. That all? Clara felt something shift in his tone, something more vulnerable than she'd heard before. And because you didn't deserve what she did to you. How do you know? Because I know you. Do you? Clara realized the conversation had taken a different turn. More personal. More risky. I'm starting to. Logan nodded, like she'd just answered a question he hadn't said out loud. The car pulled up in front of Clara's building. She grabbed her purse and the box with her shoes. Good night, Logan. Good night, Clara. But neither of them moved. Logan? Yes? You deserve someone who stays, no matter how much money you have. And with that, she stepped out of the car, leaving Logan alone with thoughts he wasn't quite ready to face. Days later, Clara was on the flight to Tokyo. It was a 14-hour trip, and she spent most of it studying the meeting documents. The negotiation with Yamamoto Industries was crucial to Lancaster Enterprises' expansion in Asia, and she wanted to make sure every cultural nuance would be respected. Logan watched Clara work, impressed by her focus. She had written notes in the margins of the contracts, pointing out terms that might sound offensive in Japanese and suggesting more diplomatic alternatives. Have you always been like this? He asked, once she finally closed the folder. Like what? A perfectionist. So detail-oriented. Clara laughed. When you don't get second chances, you learn to get it right the first time. The meeting at Yamamoto Industries headquarters was a complete success. Clara didn't just translate with technical accuracy. She understood the subtleties of Japanese communication, meaningful silences, necessary formalities, nonverbal signs of approval or resistance. When Hiroshi Yamamoto made a joke in Japanese about Americans who talk too fast, Clara smiled and replied in Japanese, "Some Americans also know when it's time to listen." Her comment broke the formal tension and instantly created a connection. 2 hours later, they walked out of the building with a preliminary agreement that went beyond all of Logan's expectations. How did you know he was testing our patience when he stayed quiet for 2 whole minutes? Logan asked as they walked through the busy streets of Shibuya. Because silence in Japan isn't the absence of communication. It's intentional communication. And where did you learn that? Clara paused. Experience. That night, they had dinner at a small traditional restaurant Clara had found. Logan insisted she pick the place, curious to see how she'd handle the city. Have you been here before? He asked, watching her speak easily with the waitress in Japanese. No, but I studied the culture, and body language is universal. Logan watched her order for both of them, explaining their dietary preferences and asking about specific ingredients. It was like watching someone dance, each movement smooth and confident. Clara, can I ask you something personal? Depends how personal. How did you learn so many languages? Clara was quiet for a moment, playing with her chopsticks. Out of necessity. What do you mean? She took a deep breath. I graduated 5 years ago, majored in languages with a focus on simultaneous interpretation. I left college thinking the world was waiting for me. And it wasn't. Not when you don't have the right last name or connections. I sent my resume to every translation agency in the city. The answer was always the same. No openings right now, but we'll keep your resume on file. Logan frowned. 5 years? 5 years washing dishes, cleaning offices, working in coffee shops, anything that paid the bills. Why didn't you give up or try something else? Clara gave a faint smile. Because giving up wasn't an option. Someone was counting on me. Your family? My grandmother, Rose Martinez. Clara paused as if deciding how much to share. She raised me by herself since I was 3. Your parents. I was adopted. My grandmother found me in an orphanage in Boston. She'd gone there to donate clothes after my grandfather died and saw me sitting alone in a corner, trying to read a book that was way too advanced for my age. Logan stopped eating. She said it was love at first sight, not with me, but with my determination. A 3-year-old trying to make sense of words she didn't understand, but refusing to give up. And she adopted you. It took 6 months of paperwork and interviews. She was a widow, worked as a seamstress, lived in a tiny apartment. Not exactly the ideal adoption profile, but she never gave up. Clara smiled, and for the first time since Logan had met her, her eyes softened with genuine tenderness. She taught me that intelligence isn't a gift, it's a responsibility, that I had to use what I had to make a difference. And the languages? She believed every language was a doorway to a new world. She saved every penny to pay for lessons, French on Saturdays, Spanish on Thursday afternoons. I taught myself Japanese online, watching anime with subtitles. Logan stayed quiet, taking in every word. When she got sick 2 years ago, I was in my 3rd year of college. Diabetes, then kidney complications. She needed someone to care for her, buy medicine, go to doctor's visits. That's why you took any job you could. That's why I took any job. She gave up everything for me. It was my turn. Clara looked out the window at the Tokyo lights. She still believes I'm going to make something big of myself. Even when I come home at 2 in the morning exhausted from cleaning offices, she asks about my career plans. Logan felt something stir in his chest, a mix of admiration and something he couldn't quite name. She knows about the new job? She does. She said she always knew it was just a matter of time. And what do you think? Clara looked him in the eyes for the first time during the entire conversation. I think I'm still trying to believe this is real. Logan leaned forward. Clara, I want you to know that. Logan, you don't have to say anything. I know this is a temporary job, that eventually you'll find someone more qualified with more experience. Clara, and that's okay. I'm grateful for the opportunity. Clara, stop. She stopped. You're the most qualified person I've ever met, not because of your degrees or certificates, because of who you are. Clara went quiet. Your grandmother is right. You're going to conquer the world. You already are. For the first time in years, Clara felt tears in her eyes. Thank you. Logan realized something had changed between them. It wasn't boss and employee anymore. It was something else, something deeper. Can I ask you something now? Clara said, discreetly wiping her eyes. Of course. Why did you really hire me? The truth. Logan hesitated. Because when you walked into that meeting room, I saw someone who knew what it meant to fight for something, and it had been a long time since I'd seen that in anyone. What do you mean? Everyone around me was born with opportunities. You earned yours. That's rare. Clara studied him. You fought too, didn't you? Logan smiled, but there was sadness in it. Maybe one day I'll tell you that story. Promise? I promise. And in that moment, in the silence between the words, they both understood they were starting to see beyond the masks they wore during the day. Behind the perfect suit, Clara saw a man who also knew pain. And Logan saw a woman whose strength didn't come from privilege but from hard choices and unconditional love. It was the beginning of an understanding that would change everything between them. Back in Boston, the routine between Clara and Logan had shifted subtly. There was a new closeness in their conversations, an ease that hadn't existed before the trip to Japan. Small moments, him asking if she wanted coffee, her adjusting his tie before a meeting, that spoke of a growing familiarity. It was a rainy Thursday when everything changed. Clara was organizing the documents for the meeting with German investors when she noticed Logan standing at the window watching the storm outside. There was something different in his posture, a tension she rarely saw. The meeting was canceled, he said without turning around. Because of the rain? Because of me. Clara stopped what she was doing. What do you mean? Logan finally turned. His eyes held a shadow she had never seen before. Heinrich Müller has known me a long time. He knows my history. What history? Logan sat in the chair across from Clara's desk, something he never did. He usually kept a distance that reinforced the hierarchy between them. You asked me in Japan why I really hired you, and you said you saw someone who fought for something. That was true, but it wasn't the whole truth. Clara closed the folder and gave him her full attention. I'm listening. Logan took a deep breath. 3 years ago, my company was on the verge of bankruptcy. A bad investment, a partner who betrayed me, a market crisis no one saw coming. In 6 months, I lost 80% of my wealth. But you recovered. I did, but not before losing other things. Clara waited in silence. Victoria and I were engaged for 2 years. We planned to get married that summer. She'd already picked the dress, the church, sent out the invitations. The rain hit the window with a slow, steady rhythm that matched his words. When the first reports about my financial troubles came out in the press, she said it was temporary, that she'd stand by me, that the money didn't matter. But it did. 3 weeks later, I came home and found the engagement ring on the kitchen table, with a note. Logan paused, as if the next words took real effort to say. She said she had reconsidered things, that she needed stability in her life, that I would understand once I wasn't so emotionally involved. Clara felt anger rising in her chest, but kept her expression neutral. I found out a week later she was seeing Marcus Whitman, real estate billionaire. They got married 4 months later. Logan? The worst part wasn't her leaving me. It was realizing that everything I thought we had was an illusion, that she never loved me. She loved what I represented. Logan stood and walked back to the window. After that, I started questioning every woman who showed interest. Was it real or just about the money? Every dinner invitation, every smile, every conversation, it all seemed to have another motive. Is that why you work so much? Why you never stop? Work is safe. Numbers don't lie. Contracts don't walk out on you in the middle of a crisis. Clara stood up and walked toward him. Logan, look at me. He turned around. Not all women are like Victoria. How can I be sure? You can't. That's what makes risk so scary. Logan studied her. And what makes you different? Clara didn't hesitate. Because I don't want anything from you, Mr. Lancaster. Just respect. What do you mean? You could lose all your money tomorrow, and I'd still respect you. You could go back to being the man who was on the edge of bankruptcy, and I'd still believe in your ability to recover. Logan said nothing. You know why? Clara continued. Because I've seen who you are when no one's watching. I've seen how you treat Patricia when she makes a mistake. I saw how you stood up for me when Richard tried to humiliate me. Clara? The man I respect isn't the CEO of Lancaster Enterprises. He's the man who gave me a chance when I was just a cleaning lady with dreams that were too big. They were close now, closer than they had ever been. Clara could see the fine lines around Logan's eyes, marks of sleepless nights and hard decisions. Are you afraid to trust me? She asked softly. I'm afraid to trust anyone. Even me? Logan looked into her eyes for a long moment. Especially you. Why? Because you matter. The silence that followed was heavy with something new. It wasn't professional anymore. It was personal, intimate, dangerous. Clara felt her heart racing. Logan was looking at her in a way that made her stomach turn. It wasn't the look of a boss toward an employee. It was a man looking at a woman. "Logan," she whispered. "Clara." They were leaning closer when Logan's phone rang, sharp and loud. The moment broke. Logan blinked, like coming out of a trance, and answered. "Lancaster." Clara stepped back, her heart still pounding. She pretended to organize some papers while he talked, but her mind was on his words, "Especially you, because you matter." Those words echoed in her head. "That was Heinrich," Logan said after hanging up. "He wants to reschedule for tomorrow." "Great." They stood in silence, the earlier conversation still lingering in the air like smoke. "Clara? Yes?" "Thanks for listening. Thank you for trusting me." Logan nodded and headed to the door. He stopped with his hand on the doorknob. "Clara? Yes? You were right. About me not being the cold man everyone thinks I am. I know. How?" Clara smiled. "Because cold men aren't afraid of getting hurt again." And with that, Logan walked out, leaving Clara alone with the realization that something fundamental had shifted between them. They were no longer just boss and employee. They didn't know what they were yet, but they were definitely no longer just that. The rain kept tapping on the window, but now it seemed to be washing something away. Old wounds, old fears, old walls. And in the quiet of the office, Clara realized she was falling for the man behind the suit. And that it was both the best and the worst thing that could happen. Saturday morning. Clara stood in line at Sunnyside Cafe, a small, cozy coffee shop 3 blocks from her apartment. It was her weekend ritual: latte, toast with strawberry jam, and 2 hours of peaceful reading. She wore faded jeans, worn-out sneakers, and a simple cotton shirt. Her hair was down, no makeup, completely different from the professional Clara Logan knew. "A large latte and toast, please," she said to the young barista with colorful hair. "For here or to go?" "For here." That's when she heard a familiar voice behind her. "Clara?" She turned and nearly dropped her wallet. Logan Lancaster was in line, wearing dark jeans and a gray t-shirt, looking completely out of place in such a casual setting. "Logan, what are you doing here?" He looked just as surprised. "I live 2 blocks from here. And you?" "I live nearby too. I've never seen you here before." "I usually have coffee at the office, but today," he shrugged, "I just felt like getting out." The barista cleared her throat, reminding them there was a line. "A black coffee, no sugar," Logan ordered quickly. "Sit with me?" Clara asked without thinking too much. Logan hesitated for a second. "Sure." They chose a corner table by the window that looked out onto the busy street. Clara watched as Logan glanced around with curiosity. "First time in a neighborhood cafe?" she asked. "That obvious?" "You're analyzing the place like it's a new market to invest in." Logan laughed. "Occupational habit. And what's your verdict?" "Steady flow, loyal customers, welcoming atmosphere. Would be a solid investment." Clara shook her head. "You really can't turn it off, can you?" "Turn what off?" "The CEO mode." Logan paused, thoughtful. "It's been so long I don't even know the difference anymore." Clara bit into her toast, watching him. "Can I ask you something not related to work?" "You can try. What's your favorite food?" Logan blinked like she'd just spoken another language. "My favorite food?" "Yes. The one you'd eat every day if you could." He paused. "No one's ever asked me that." "Really? People always ask about business, investment, strategies, never about food." Clara laughed. "So, what is it?" Logan thought for a moment. "Boxed mac and cheese. You know, the kind that comes in a little blue box." "Seriously? My nanny used to make it when I was a kid. Whenever my parents were out of town, which was most of the time, she'd make mac and cheese and we'd watch cartoons together." Clara smiled. "That's really sweet. What about you?" "My grandma's empanadas. She makes them on Sundays. Always complains it's too much work, but never stops making them." "What's her secret?" "Love and a little bit of stubbornness." They both laughed. Logan realized it was the first time in years he'd laughed at something that had nothing to do with work. "Can I ask you something else?" Clara continued. "Now I'm curious. What music do you listen to when you're alone?" Logan blushed. "You'll laugh." "I promise I won't." "40s jazz." "Really? My grandfather was a musician. He played saxophone in nightclubs. When my parents fought, which was often, I'd hide out in his basement and he'd play for me." Clara felt a pinch in her chest. Does he still play? He passed away when I was 15. I'm sorry. He taught me that music is the only language that doesn't need translation. Clara smiled. He'd be proud of his grandson. I'm not sure. I think he would have preferred I followed music instead. It's never too late. At 35? Why not? Logan looked at her like she had just suggested flying to the moon. And you? What do you listen to? A little bit of everything. Salsa when I'm cleaning, jazz when I'm feeling down, rock when I need energy. And when you're happy. Clara paused. You know, I've never really thought about that. What do you mean? I always use music to change how I feel, never to celebrate when I'm already feeling good. Maybe you should start. At that moment, an older woman approached their table. White hair, a warm smile, and an old-fashioned camera in her hands. Sorry to interrupt, but you two are such a lovely couple. May I take your picture? Clara blushed. Actually, we're not. It would be an honor, Logan said, surprising even himself. The woman smiled even wider. How romantic. Scoot in a little. Clara glanced at Logan, confused, but he just shrugged. They moved closer together, and the woman took the picture. Perfect. You've got that sparkle in your eyes. Been together long? We're. Clara started. Still figuring it out, Logan finished. The woman winked. The best love stories start that way. And she walked off, leaving them in silence. Why did you say that? Clara asked. Say what? That we're figuring it out. Logan looked down at his hands. Because I don't know what we are anymore. What do you mean? We started out as boss and employee. Then we became work partners. And now? Now? Now I'm sitting in a neighborhood cafe on a Saturday morning, talking about mac and cheese and feeling more like myself than I have in years. Clara felt her heart beat faster. And is that a bad thing? It's scary. Why? Logan looked into her eyes. Because we've been here for 3 hours and I haven't thought about work once. Because you make me laugh. Because when that woman called us a couple, a part of me wanted to tell her she was right. The silence that followed was full of unspoken possibilities. Logan? I know. It's complicated. You work for me. It would be irresponsible. That's not what I was going to say. What were you going to say? Clara took a deep breath. That it's also been 3 hours since I thought of you as my boss. They looked at each other and something shifted. It wasn't professional anymore. It was something deeper, something real. And now? Logan asked. Now, you're going to tell me more about your grandfather, the musician, Clara said, smiling. And I'm going to teach you how to listen to music when you're happy. Logan smiled back. Deal. And they stayed there, talking until the sun went down, like two ordinary people enjoying each other's company, not knowing that day would change everything between them. On Monday, Clara was in the conference room, translating a presentation for Korean investors when her phone vibrated. She always kept it on silent during meetings, but something made her glance at the screen. Boston General Hospital appeared on the display. Her blood ran cold. Excuse me, she murmured to Logan, who was in the middle of explaining the quarterly growth charts. She stepped out of the room and answered with shaking hands. Hello? Clara Martinez? This is Nurse Janet from General Hospital. Your grandmother, Rose Martinez, was admitted about an hour ago. She got sick at home and... The rest of the words faded. Clara felt the world spin around her. Is she okay? She managed to ask. She's stable, but you need to come as soon as possible. Clara hung up and stood frozen in the hallway, trying to process what she'd heard. Her legs felt like jelly. Clara? Logan appeared in the conference room doorway. What happened? My grandmother, hospital, I need to. The words tumbled out. Logan understood immediately. Come on, he said, grabbing his coat. Patricia, cancel all my meetings today. Sir, but the meeting with the Koreans, reschedule it for tomorrow. Clara looked at him, dazed. Logan, you don't have to. That meeting is important. Not more important than this, he said, gently taking her arm. Let's go. The drive to the hospital was a blur. Logan drove while Clara sat in silence, staring out the window but seeing nothing. Her hands trembled in her lap. She's going to be fine, Logan said quietly. You can't know that. I can't. But I know Rose Martinez from your stories, and women like her don't give up easily. Clara looked at him, surprised. You remember her name? I remember everything you tell me. At the hospital, Clara ran to the front desk. Rose Martinez, she was admitted this afternoon. Room 314, third floor, the receptionist replied. Family only. Logan hesitated, but Clara pulled him by the arm. She paused, not sure how to explain. He's important. They rode the elevator in silence. Clara was clearly nervous, running her hands through her hair, straightening her clothes. Clara, Logan said gently. Yes? You're not alone. She looked at him, eyes filling with tears. Thank you for being here. You don't have to thank me. Rose Martinez was lying in the hospital bed, hooked up to a few monitors but awake, her eyes bright. At 72, she still had the proud posture Clara had inherited. Grandma, Clara ran to the bedside. Oh, my girl, all this fuss? It was just a bit of dizziness. Dizziness? You fainted. My blood pressure went up a little, that's all. Nothing some medicine can't fix. Clara held her grandmother's hand, relieved but still worried. You scared me more than I've ever been in my life. Sorry, love. But look there. Who's that handsome man you brought? Clara turned. Logan was standing in the doorway, clearly uncomfortable at intruding on such a personal moment. Grandma, this is Logan Lancaster, my boss. Rose studied Logan with the sharp look she used to size people up. Lancaster, as in the Lancaster from the business magazines? Yes, ma'am. Logan stepped closer to the bed. It's a pleasure to meet you, Mrs. Martinez. Clara talks about you often. Hope it's good things. Only wonderful things. Rose smiled, looking from Logan to Clara and back. So you're my granddaughter's boss? I am. And you came here on a Monday afternoon? I did. Canceled important meetings? Logan glanced at Clara. How did you know? Because Clara told me you're always tied up in meetings, so either you're an extraordinary boss, or… Logan asked, curious. Rose gave a mischievous smile. Or you're the prince from the fairy tales Clara always dreamed of finding. Grandma, Clara turned bright red. What? Ever since you were little, you talked about finding a prince who would see you for who you really are, not just what you seem to be. Logan looked at Clara, then at Rose. You have an extraordinary granddaughter. I know. The question is, do you know? The silence that followed was full of meaning. Clara wished she could hide under the bed. I think I'm starting to find out, Logan answered honestly. Rose patted Clara's hand. He's a smart one. Grandma, please. What? I can't give my opinion anymore? I nearly died today. I have the right to say what I think. You didn't nearly die, Clara laughed despite her embarrassment. How do you know? Could have been my time. Logan, watching the exchange between them, started laughing. What's so funny? Rose asked. You two. It's like watching Clara in a more experienced version. More experienced and wiser, Rose corrected. And with many more stories to tell. I'd love to hear them someday. Someday? Rose looked at Clara with a meaningful expression. How about Sunday? Come have dinner at our house. I'll make those empanadas Clara's always talking about. Grandma. What? The man saved you from a life of cleaning. Least I can do is feed him properly. Logan looked at Clara, who was mortified. It would be an honor, Mrs. Martinez. Rose, call me Rose. The nurse came into the room. Mrs. Martinez, how are you feeling? Great. Ready to go home. Not so fast. We want to observe you for a few more hours. Rose sighed. Hospitals. Making a mountain out of a molehill. Clara laughed. Grandma, you fainted. It was just a scare. I'm fine now. Logan watched the scene. Clara taking care of her grandmother, Rose complaining about the medical procedures, the obvious love between them, and felt something stir in his chest. Something he hadn't felt in years. The feeling of belonging somewhere. Logan, Rose called out. Yes? Thank you for taking care of my girl. She's the one taking care of me, actually. Well, good. You take care of each other. Clara and Logan looked at each other, and in that moment, they both knew something had changed for good. They were no longer just boss and employee. They were no longer just friends. They were something more. Something they didn't yet have the courage to name, but that was growing between them like a plant finally finding fertile soil. Sunday then? Rose asked Logan. Sunday, he confirmed. And Clara knew her life would never be the same. The trip to Chicago was supposed to be routine, a 3-day conference on sustainable investments with presentations from Lancaster Enterprises and networking with potential partners. Clara had prepared all the necessary translations and reviewed the contracts that would be discussed. What she didn't expect was to uncover a betrayal. It all started on the second day, during the coffee break between sessions. Clara was organizing documents when she heard a conversation in German coming from the adjacent hallway. "Is the proposal ready?" a voice asked. "Yes. When Lancaster presents the project tomorrow, we'll have all the information needed for our counteroffer." Clara recognized the voice immediately. Marcus Webb, Vice President of Business Development at Lancaster Enterprises, a man Logan considered one of his most trusted executives. "And he suspects nothing?" the other voice asked. "Nothing. He sees me as a loyal ally for 10 years. He would never imagine I'm passing information to you." Clara felt her blood run cold. Marcus was talking to representatives from Hoffman Industries, Lancaster's main German competitor. "Great. With his data, we'll present a better offer and close the deal before he realizes what happened." "And my compensation?" $2 million, as agreed, plus a board position when we take over his American contracts. Clara quietly stepped back, heart racing. Marcus Webb was selling the company's confidential information, and Logan had no idea. For the rest of the day, Clara watched Marcus discreetly. He acted normally, smiling, helpful, the model executive Logan always praised. But now she could see through the mask. That night, while Logan reviewed the next day's presentation in his hotel room, Clara knocked on the door. "We need to talk," she said as soon as he opened it. "Sure. Did something happen?" Clara came in and closed the door. "Logan, do you trust Marcus Webb?" "Of course. He's worked with me for a decade. Why?" Clara took a deep breath. "Because he's betraying you." Logan stopped what he was doing. "What do you mean?" "Today I overheard a conversation between him and Hoffman Industries representatives. He's passing confidential details about our proposal to them." "Clara, that's a very serious accusation." "I know, and I'm certain of what I heard." Logan sat on the edge of the bed. "Tell me exactly what you heard." Clara recounted the whole conversation, word for word. Logan grew paler with each detail. "Are you sure it was Marcus?" "Absolutely. I recognized his voice, and he said he's worked with you for 10 years. Logan was silent for a long time. "If it's true, it explains a lot." "How so?" "In recent months, some deals we thought were certain barely slipped through. Like competitors knew exactly what to offer to beat us." "What will you do?" Logan stood and began pacing. "I need concrete proof. I can't accuse a senior executive based only on what you heard." "Then we'll get the proof." The next morning, Clara put a risky plan into action. During breakfast, she approached Marcus. "Mr. Webb, may I speak with you for a moment?" "Of course, Clara. What's up?" "It's about today's presentation. I noticed some numbers in the German documents don't match our original proposal." Marcus became alert. "What kind of differences?" "The profit projections are slightly different. I wanted to be sure before mentioning it to Mr. Lancaster." "I'm glad you noticed," Marcus said, relaxing. "Show me exactly where." Clara opened her laptop and pulled up a fake document she'd prepared the night before, with slightly altered numbers. "Here, see? The figures are 15% lower than the original version." Marcus studied the screen carefully. "Interesting. Can I have a copy of this to review with my team?" "Of course." Clara saved the file onto a flash drive and handed it to Marcus, knowing full well he'd likely pass the false information along to the Germans. 2 hours later, during the main presentation, Logan watched closely as the Hoffman Industries reps reacted to the actual numbers, very different from the ones Clara had shown Marcus. The confusion on the Germans' faces was clear. They had prepared a counteroffer based on incorrect data. After the presentation, Logan asked Marcus to join him in a private meeting. Clara was there as interpreter. "Marcus, I need to ask you something," Logan said, calm but serious. "Of course." "How do you explain that Hoffman Industries came in with a proposal based on numbers that only existed in a fake document Clara showed you this morning?" Marcus went pale. I don't understand." "Clara created a document with incorrect figures and gave it only to you. 2 hours later, the Germans presented a counteroffer based on those exact numbers." The silence in the room was deafening. "Logan, I can explain." "Go ahead and try." Marcus looked from Logan to Clara, then back to Logan. He realized there was no way out. "They offered me a lot of money," he finally admitted, "and a better position once they took over the U.S. contracts." Logan stood up slowly. 10 years, Marcus. 10 years of trust, partnership, and opportunities I gave you. Logan, it's just business. You taught me that. I taught you to compete honestly, not to betray people who trust you." Logan turned toward the door. You're fired. Our lawyers will contact you about the legal consequences of breaking confidentiality. Marcus looked at Clara with anger. It was you, wasn't it? Their little spy? Just someone doing the right thing, Clara replied calmly. Later, in the hotel lobby, Logan gathered the whole team that had traveled to Chicago. I want everyone to know that Clara Martinez saved this company today. Thanks to her attention and intelligence, we uncovered a betrayal that could have cost us millions in lost contracts. The executives looked at Clara with newfound respect. Starting today, Clara is no longer just our translator. She's now our senior consultant for international development. Spontaneous applause broke out. When the meeting ended and everyone dispersed, Logan and Clara remained in the lobby. Thank you, he said. Once again, you saved everything. I just did what was right. No, Clara, you did much more than that. You protected me. You stood up for me. They were standing close now, the tension between them impossible to ignore. Logan, Clara, there's something I need to say. What is it? He stepped closer. Their faces were just inches apart. You're not just my employee. You're not just my consultant. I'm what? Clara asked, her heart racing. But before Logan could answer, Patricia's sharp voice echoed through the lobby. She was running toward them, holding a phone. Mr. Lancaster, emergency. The Japanese investors are requesting a video call in 20 minutes. Logan closed his eyes, frustrated. All right, Patricia, let's head to the business center. He looked at Clara. This conversation isn't over. I know. And she did. Just as she knew that the next time they were alone, nothing would interrupt them. A week after the Chicago incident, Logan showed up at Clara's office holding 2 gold-colored invitations and wearing an expression she couldn't quite read. International Conference on Corporate Sustainability, he said, placing the invitations on her desk. Rome. 3 days. Clara looked at the invitations, confused. You need someone to translate for Italian? No. Spanish? Some of the participants are from Latin America. Clara, Logan interrupted. It's not for work. She looked up, unsure. What do you mean? Logan sat in the chair across from her, something he'd been doing more and more lately. I want you to go with me as my guest, not as an employee, not as a translator, as Clara Martinez. Her heart skipped a beat. Logan, just hear me out before you say no, he leaned forward. Rome is an amazing city. The conference is just an excuse. We could explore, have dinner in little restaurants, visit museums, like regular people. Clara looked from the invitations to his face. Like regular people? Like 2 people who enjoy being around each other. The silence that followed was full of everything they hadn't said to each other. All the interrupted conversations, all the almost lost moments, all the tension that had been building for months. Logan, I can't. Why not? Clara stood and walked to the window, turning her back to him. Because it would change everything. And what if I want it to change? She turned around. Do you really want that? Or are you just confused because we've spent so much time together? What do you mean? Clara took a deep breath. Logan, you just got out of a relationship that ended badly. You've been working with me for months. I'm practically the only woman in your life who isn't purely professional. It's only natural that... Stop. Logan stood up. That's not it. How can you be sure? Because I know the difference between loneliness and a real connection. Clara felt her eyes fill with tears, and I know the difference between a career opportunity and a broken heart. Logan looked at her, not understanding. What do you mean? I mean I'm in love with you. The words came out before she could stop them. The silence was absolute, and that's exactly why I can't go to Rome with you. Logan blinked, trying to process what he'd just heard. Clara. No, let me finish. She wiped away a tear that escaped. I'm in love with you, Logan Lancaster. With the man who cancels meetings to go with me to the hospital. The man who remembers my grandmother's name. The man who eats macaroni and cheese and listens to jazz when he's alone. She stopped to catch her breath. But I'm also the woman you found cleaning offices. And no matter how many fancy titles you give me, there will always be people who will say, I'm just someone who seduced her boss. I don't care what people say. But I do, Clara wiped another tear. I care about my dignity. I care about my self-worth. And I care too much about you to risk our... Whatever this is. Logan stepped closer. Clara, what we're feeling is real. Is it? How can you be sure? How can I be sure? Because when I'm with you, I feel like I can be myself. And when you're not with me, it's when you're alone at night in your apartment, do you still feel the same? Or do you wonder if it's just convenience? Logan went quiet. That's it, Clara nodded. You're not sure, and I can't risk my heart on uncertainty. She walked over to the table and picked up a sheet of paper. What are you doing? Something I should have done weeks ago. Clara started writing with a steady hand. Clara, don't do this. I hereby submit my resignation from the position of Senior International Development Consultant at Lancaster Enterprises, she read aloud as she wrote. Stop writing. My last day will be next Friday. Logan moved to take the paper. Clara, don't be ridiculous. She stepped back. I appreciate the opportunity for professional and personal growth this experience has given me. You're being dramatic. I'm being practical. She finished writing and signed it. And I'm protecting both of us. From what? From making a mistake that could destroy something good. Clara held out the paper to him. If what we're feeling is real, it'll still be real, even if I'm working somewhere else. And if it's not? And if it's not? Then at least we won't have ruined a perfect professional partnership because of confused feelings. Logan took the paper but didn't read it. Do you really believe that's all it is? Confused feelings? Clara looked him in the eyes. I believe you need time to figure out what you really feel. Away from me, away from work, away from the convenience of having someone who always understands you close by. And what if I figure out I miss you? Then you know where to find me. And what if you meet someone else? Clara gave a sad smile. Logan, I spent 5 years being invisible to the world. Do you really think I'll meet another man who sees me the way you do in just a few weeks? Logan stayed silent, holding the resignation letter. I don't want you to leave. And I don't want to leave. But sometimes doing the right thing isn't doing what we want. Clara? Logan, promise me one thing. What? When you go to Rome, really think about what you feel. Don't think about Clara the translator, or Clara the consultant, or Clara who saved your business. Think about the Clara who laughs at your bad jokes and knows your favorite music. She picked up her bag. And if you figure out you miss her, the person, not the professional, then maybe we can talk about what we are. And what if I figure that out now? Clara paused at the door. Then you wouldn't need time away from me to be sure. And with that, she walked out, leaving Logan alone with the resignation letter in his hands and the feeling that he had just lost something precious without fully understanding why. That night, Logan stayed late at the office, reading and rereading Clara's letter. Every word was carefully chosen, every sentence reflecting the intelligence and dignity that had drawn him to her from the very beginning. He finally understood what she was doing. Clara wasn't running from him. She was protecting herself. And in a way, she was protecting him too. Because if what they felt was real, it would survive a temporary separation. And if it wasn't real, she was sparing them both from a mistake that could destroy not only their working relationship, but also the genuine friendship they had built. Logan placed the letter in a drawer and looked at the invitations to Rome on his desk. For the first time in years, he was going to travel alone. And for the first time in months, he would have to figure out who Logan Lancaster was when Clara Martinez wasn't around to remind him. The night before the trip to Rome, Logan was packing at his apartment when he came across a white envelope tucked among the conference documents. His name was written on it, in handwriting he recognized immediately. He sat on the bed and opened it carefully. Logan, if you're reading this, it means I'm already far enough away that I can't stop you from reading it. I want you to know that these past few months have been the best of my professional life. Not just because of the opportunity, but because of the person who gave it to me. You saw me when I was invisible. You listened when I was just another voice in the hallway. You respected me when I had nothing but dreams and determination. I never wanted anything from you except a chance to show who I really was. And you gave me that. You gave me the chance to prove I was worth more than the circumstances you found me in. I know my leaving may seem confusing, maybe even unfair, but I need you to understand, I'm protecting something precious. I'm protecting the chance that one day we might be more than boss and employee, without all the complications that would bring right now. If you go to Rome and realize you don't miss me, then you'll know I made the right decision. And if you do miss me, well, you know where to find me. Thank you for teaching me that I deserve to be in any space I choose. With care and respect, Clara P.S. Remember to listen to jazz when you're happy. Logan read the letter 3 times before folding it carefully and placing it in his wallet. Rome was just as he imagined. Ancient, majestic, full of history. The conference was held in a 17th-century palazzo with painted ceilings and a view of the Colosseum. But Logan could barely focus on the speakers. The empty seat beside him seemed to shout Clara's absence. Every presentation in Italian reminded him of how she would translate not just the words, but the cultural context behind them. Every coffee break made him think of the conversations they would have had about the day's topics. On the second day, a French businessman approached him. "Mr. Lancaster? Henri Dubois. We met in Paris." "Of course, Henry. How are you?" "Doing well, thank you. But may I ask, where's your brilliant translator? My whole team talked about the impression she made." Logan gave a strained smile. "Clara is working on other projects." "That's a shame. She brought something special to your presentations. A sense of humanity that's rare in the business world." After Henry walked away, Logan left the conference and wandered the streets of Rome without a destination. He stopped at a small gelato shop and ordered a flavor he couldn't finish. Then he sat on the steps of an old church and watched tourists take photos. For the first time in years, he felt completely alone. And for the first time in months, he realized just how much Clara had become a part of not just his work, but his life. It wasn't just her professional skills he missed. It was her laugh when he made a bad joke. The way she challenged his ideas without ever being disrespectful. The feeling that, with her around, he could be a better version of himself. The flight back to Boston felt like it took forever. Logan spent the entire 8 hours thinking about Clara's letter, Henry's words, and the empty seat next to him during the whole conference. He arrived home late Thursday night, exhausted, but with a newfound clarity about what he needed to do. On Friday morning, instead of going to the office, Logan pulled Clara's address from the HR files and drove to the neighborhood where she lived. The building was simple, with exposed brick on a quiet street lined with small trees. He sat in the car for 10 minutes, rehearsing what he would say. Then he walked up to the 3rd floor and knocked on the door of apartment 3B. Clara opened the door wearing a comfy blouse and jeans, her hair tied up in a messy bun. For a moment, her eyes lit up when she saw him, but the look quickly turned cautious. "Logan? What are you doing here? Can I come in?" She hesitated but stepped aside to let him in. The apartment was small but cozy. Books were stacked on nearly every surface. Plants filled the windowsills, and photos of Clara and her grandmother lined the wall. It smelled like coffee and something that just felt like home. "How was Rome?" she asked, offering him a glass of water. "Empty." Clara paused. "What do you mean?" Logan turned to face her. "Empty without you. Every presentation I listened to, I kept thinking how you would have translated it better. Every meal I had, I imagined your jokes about the food. Every view I saw, I wished you were there to share it with me." "Logan, I read your letter. You weren't supposed to." "Of course I was, and you were right." Clara looked at him confused. "Right about what?" "About needing time away from you to really understand my feelings." Clara's heart sank. "And you figured it out." "I did. That you don't feel anything for me besides—" "That I'm completely in love with you," Logan interrupted. Clara felt her breath catch. "What?" Logan stepped closer. "I'm in love with the woman who corrects my French pronunciation. The woman who cracks jokes about contracts in Spanish. The one who knows my favorite music and reminds me to play jazz when I'm happy. Logan, I'm in love with the Clara who saved my company not once, but 3 times. The Clara who stood up for my grandmother at the hospital. The Clara who was brave enough to walk away when staying would have been easier, but not necessarily right." Tears started to roll down Clara's cheeks. "Are you sure?" "Absolutely. Are you?" Clara laughed through her tears. "I've been in love with you since you laughed at my legal Spanish joke." "Come have dinner with me," Logan said, taking her hands. "As your former employee? As the woman I want to get to know better. The woman I want to share ice cream with in Rome next time." "And if it doesn't work?" "And if it does?" Clara looked into his eyes and saw everything she needed to see. This wasn't a powerful CEO speaking to a former employee. It was just Logan talking to Clara, one heart to another. Yes, she whispered. Yes. Yes to dinner. Yes to Rome. Yes to finding out what we are when we're not pretending we're just coworkers. Logan smiled, and for the first time, nothing interrupted them. He kissed her right there, in that small, warm apartment, between stacks of books and sunlit plants. And when they pulled away, they both knew this was just the beginning. 6 months later, Lancaster Enterprises looked completely different. Not physically. The offices were still sleek, the meetings still took place on the 48th floor, but there was a new energy in the air, a lightness that hadn't been there before. Clara Martinez, now Director of International Projects, had her own office with a city view. But the biggest change wasn't her title. It was how Logan smiled more, how he laughed in meetings, how the two of them worked together in such perfect sync. It impressed even the most skeptical executives. I honestly can't picture this company without you two, Patricia said one afternoon as she handed Clara a stack of reports. We make a good team, Clara replied with a smile. You're more than a good team. You're, how can I put this? Complimentary. Clara looked through the glass wall at Logan's office, where he was gesturing animatedly during a video call with Japanese investors. 6 months of officially dating had confirmed what they both already knew. They worked, not just as a couple, but as partners, in every sense. The company's annual event was set for a Friday night in December. The grand ballroom of the same hotel where Clara had once faced off with Victoria was now glowing with golden lights and white floral arrangements. All employees, investors, and key partners were present. Clara wore an emerald green dress that Logan had picked out himself, claiming it matched her eyes when she was determined. He looked sharp in a black tux, but she could tell he was nervous by the way he moved. You okay? She asked, fixing his tie. Perfect, he replied, kissing her forehead. Just nervous about the speech. Since when do you get nervous about speeches? Logan gave her a mysterious smile. Since today. Dinner went smoothly. Clara chatted with German investors in German, French partners in French, and a Brazilian delegation in Portuguese. Logan watched from a distance, still amazed at how effortlessly she moved between languages and cultures. Ladies and gentlemen, Logan's voice echoed through the hall as he stepped onto the stage. I want to take this evening to talk about something fundamental to any company's success: trust. Clara stopped talking and turned all her attention to the stage. For years, I believed trust was a luxury I couldn't afford, that vulnerability was weakness, that keeping my distance was the only way to stay in control. The room went silent. But this year, I learned something truly important. I learned that real strength comes from admitting we need each other. That the best deals don't happen just through contracts and strategies, but through genuine human connections. Logan looked straight at Clara. Just over a year ago, an extraordinary woman came into my life. She taught me that intelligence without humility is just arrogance, that success without purpose is just numbers, and that leadership without heart is nothing but empty power. Clara felt her eyes fill with tears. Clara Martinez, Logan went on, stepping down from the stage, you taught me the hardest language in the world, the language of truth. He walked over to the table where she sat, the entire room following his every move in complete silence. You taught me it's possible to be vulnerable and strong at the same time. That trusting someone doesn't mean losing control. It means gaining something far more valuable, a true partner. Logan knelt beside Clara's chair, pulling a small blue box from his pocket. Clara Martinez, will you be my partner in the greatest adventure of life? Will you sign a contract with no expiration date with me? Clara was crying openly now. Logan, will you marry me? The room held its breath. Clara looked at the man kneeling in front of her, the same man who a year earlier had challenged her to translate a contract in French, and saw her whole future reflected in his eyes. Yes, she whispered, then louder, yes. The room erupted in applause and cheers as Logan slipped the ring on her finger and kissed her like it was the first and last time. 9 months later, on a sunny September morning, St. Teresa's church was filled with white flowers and emotional guests. Clara looked stunning in a simple yet elegant dress as she walked down the aisle toward Logan, who was waiting with a smile that lit up the entire space. Rose Martinez, now 73, was glowing in a wheelchair decorated with white ribbons, a medical precaution she'd turned into part of the ceremony. In her hands, she held a small pillow with the rings. "Who gives this woman to be married?" the priest asked. "I do," Rose said proudly. "But really, they chose each other a long time ago. I'm just here to confirm she has excellent taste." Laughter filled the church. During their vows, Logan said, "Clara, you taught me that love isn't possession. It's a choice, and I choose you today, tomorrow, and every day of my life." Clara replied, "Logan, you saw me when I was invisible and loved me while I was still learning to love myself. I promise to choose you every day, in good times and bad." When the priest said, "You may kiss the bride," and Logan and Clara kissed, Rose shouted from the back of the church, "I knew it. I always knew." The entire church burst out laughing. At the reception, Logan and Clara signed a special document he'd prepared, a symbolic marriage contract, written like a real legal contract but with just one clause. Single clause. The parties agreed to choose each other every day, renewing this contract each morning through words, actions, and unconditional love. Term, forever. "Now that's a contract that doesn't need a lawyer to interpret," Clara laughed, signing next to Logan. "It's the most important contract I've ever signed," Logan replied, kissing her again. As they danced their first dance as husband and wife, Clara whispered in his ear, "Thank you for teaching me I deserve to take up any space I choose to be in." "Thank you for teaching me the best place to be is by your side," Logan answered. The music played on, guests smiled, and Rose Martinez watched from the corner, whispering to anyone who'd listen, "I told you from day one he was her fairy tale prince." And she was right. As always. What did you think of Logan and Clara's story? Leave your thoughts in the comments. Rate this story from 0 to 10. What score would you give? Subscribe to the channel and hit the bell to follow all our stories and check out more touching stories by clicking here on the end screen.